We'll call the meeting of July 13th to order. Secretary, please record the roll. Board members present. Before we get started with our regular agenda, we have the minutes from July 13th that need to be approved. And you've had those in your board packet. And then the September 14th we just got, and if you need a couple minutes more to look at those, I'll sure give them to you. Everyone okay? Okay, we'll take these individually. July 13th, 2020 meeting. Minutes for approval. Is there a...
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Move to approve by Sean. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Pat. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried without dissent. September 14th meeting that you just got, is there a motion or any corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a correction. I don't believe that I opened the meeting that morning. I'm listed as I have, but I don't believe I have. I think you were here for that meeting.
I was.
I would accept the minutes with the information that I opened the meeting to revert that back to the chairman.
Is a comment from you?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have him listed as present? The roll? Okay, make those corrections. Any other corrections?
Chairman?
Yes.
There's in item number 2, Mr. Brand's name is spelled incorrectly, I believe, towards the bottom.
Okay,
You need to correct that.
make that correction. Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to approve with those corrections?
I would make a motion to accept the minutes as presented to us.
Thank you, Pat. Is there a second? Second by Trevor. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried without dissent. Regular meeting for October 12th. On our agenda, number 1, a variance request to reduce the street side yard fence requirement of a 15-foot setback to a 0-foot setback for a 6-foot fence located at 1823 2nd Street West. I believe that's the newbies. Do you want to come up and give us all the particulars, Patty and Craig?
Good morning. We bought our home in June of this year, and after we'd been in there, we had noticed that 5 of the posts that are current. Is this on? Oh, there it is.
Pull her up a little bit, Craig.
Yeah.
I forgot my hearing aids. I'm in trouble.
Okay. We bought our home in June of this year over there. It was a Coons home over there. And the fence that's currently there has been in there since, I believe, the home was built in 2007. And after we'd been in there, we began to notice that the fence was moving in certain spots where it shouldn't be. And there's 5 posts that are currently rotted off. And so we decided to spend some more money, and we got a bid from the local fence company. And they drew up the plan to replace it with a plastic fence. And the thing that we changed on there was the fence that is directly out the patio door. We wanted to go to a 6-foot height there, and the fence company reduced the fence on the I believe on the north end from down to 3 feet, and the fence on the south side, they actually reduced it from 4 feet, or from 5 feet to 4 feet. And the rest of the fence, of course, on the other west side and the south side would be 6 foot. And we were told by the city that we could not do that, that it had to be a 4-foot fence all the way through. So we requested that they would take another look at it, and they said they wouldn't change their view on that there. And they also told us that that fence was put in there illegally. Well, I don't know the particulars from back in 2007, but I don't understand why the city wasn't involved in 2007 and why the builder at that time would have done something illegally. And since then, the only neighbor that really is impacted by it is the neighbor on the south, which is Dave and Elvira Schaff. We have talked to them about the shed that is in that corner and asked them whether or not that has been a hindrance to them backing out of their driveway. And they just looked at us like, we've been here for 4 years, we've never had a problem backing out of our driveway. And the current fence is about 7 feet from the sidewalk right now. And if you look at the pictures that were sent in the packet, the yard is established. There's like 20-foot trees all the way down that fence line. And the trees directly outside the patio door actually, are obscure the street more than the fence does. And I guess the biggest reason that we want to increase this to 6 foot in those areas is because we have grandchildren, and we have one more on the way in November. And by putting a 4-foot fence, I don't know whether I'd want to have my grandchildren out there, especially the way times are changing. And I just believe having the 6-foot fence there provides us with more security, and it also gives us a little bit more privacy, I guess, and that's probably the main reason you do put a fence up. And the only thing that I would add to the drawing on there is on the south side, we're proposing by the fence company to go down to 4 feet from 5 feet. I think I can still jump over a 4-foot fence. And if we could leave that at 5 feet, that would be great. If not, obviously we would go with the 4-foot fence. Am I leaving anything out?
No, well, just in the front, we're even going to
Yeah,
go
I told them that.
even further down.
Yeah, we're even going further down on the north end of the street where the current fence is at. So we're trying to.
If you're rounding the corner visually from the street, so.
So I'm sure I've left something out, but I don't know what it is. So
When we walk out of our patio from the kitchen and sit to eat.
Patty, you got to talk.
I said, when we walk out of our patio from the kitchen, literally, I'm 5'4", that fence is 5. Everybody can see us sitting out there eating from the street and the sidewalk with the current 5-foot fence.
And that part of the fence really doesn't affect anybody coming around either corner. It doesn't affect anybody going around the corner. It doesn't affect the shops backing out of their driveway. So I just think common sense comes in here someplace. So I guess that's what we're proposing, and we would like to have a variance where we could go ahead and do that. So.
Okay. Leonard, do you want to give us any background on that?
Again, just like I guess our previous meeting, we have an ordinance. It's the city's job to enforce that ordinance. If a property doesn't comply with that ordinance, they can come in front of this board and ask for a variance. That's what the newbies are doing today. The reason we have the fence permit today is because of situations like this. People put up fences in the right of way, and so we actually had to create a fence permit so that this wouldn't continue to happen. However, there are fences out there in States Edition in the area around there there's a lot of fences still in the right of way. We have not, as a city, gone back, send letters saying remove that fence. If the fence has to be repaired or replaced, that's where we come in and try to meet compliance with our current code. The code hasn't changed for height. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that we require a permit for a fence so that we're ahead of it instead of years later trying to establish our ordinance. That's where we're at.
When we went around and took a look, according to filing this application for the variance, one of the things in here was describe how the hardship is not shared generally by other properties in the same zoning district and in the same vicinity. And we went ahead, drove around, and had several pictures of other properties, and I think we put that in the packet. These are new builds, and some of them are 6 foot that literally they can't see coming out of their driveway. And we're talking 6 foot just off of our patio to the east that doesn't impede visually any drivers. So those were new builds. Ours is like way back from 2007.
There's actually one photo in here that actually this board approved for a variance. The one, the photo that you have that has a Jeep pickup and a trailer, the maroon house, you actually approved the variance for that height of that fence. The other fences on here were, again, if they're out in the right of way, they were put up without a permit, and it was prior to us creating our fence permit ordinance.
But Mr. Schwint, our 6 foot fence is not visually impairing anything. That is just to the east of our property. That has nothing to do with anybody driving by.
Again, our job is to enforce the code our ordinance that are on the books. If you don't agree with our ordinance, that's why you're in front of the Board of Adjustment. My job is to enforce what's on the books.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Can I
Tom.
ask a few questions?
You bet.
First off, is this fence in the right of way?
It's close. I don't know that it is in the right of way.
Because it's set back from the sidewalk, and
Yeah.
and you're planning to put it back in the same location, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can I ask some questions about the western fence, just so I got a clear understanding as to, this is, are we 3 foot all from the north headed south to where the fence goes over to the house? Is that the height of that fence?
They explained from where it comes out from the side of the house there, at that point it would be 6 feet, and then they would angle it down to 3 feet.
So up at the corner, and
From the-
following this same concept of this one is what I'm, where
Correct.
the angle's down. So
Correct.
at this point, you'd be 3 foot.
Yes,
Okay, but it'd be 6 foot starting back.
correct.
And then you're proposing to take that 6 foot back to that 15-foot site distance triangle, I guess, back next to your property south, and then that's where they're proposing to drop it down to 4?
Correct.
And you're asking for 5 at that location?
If I could, otherwise I'll go by what the drawing says.
Okay. And then is the rest of this going to be 5 coming around, or is it all going to be 6 except that corner?
The only thing that would be lower would be the corner. The rest of it would be 6.
Okay.
The fence on the west side, the 58 feet, it would be 6 feet. And then on the south, it would be 6 feet until that 15 feet from the corner.
And is that 15 feet on a driveway, is that in code as a site distance? Or is that just meets the city code for fencing requirements, right, on the street side yard?
Explain that again. I just want to make sure.
Well, where they got the 15 feet coming along their south property line,
Yes?
where it drops down to 4 foot, that's what the code says it's supposed to be.
The 4 foot in a street side yard, but because it's next to a driveway, it's within the 30-foot distance triangle for a driveway. That's where we ask that it be dropped down to 32 inches per code.
But right now, it's 5 foot at this location. And your 30 foot is from the street, right?
It is
I mean,
from,
where
it
you-
is from the street and back toward the property owner on the south, and then you head north with the other 30 foot and create the
And
triangle.
then create the triangle. So how much of this is within that, do you know?
Roughly, I guess, Mr. Stepp is actually, if you want to pass this down here. And just so the board knows, I did receive 2 phone calls with nothing against the property. The homeowner to the south said they didn't have any issues, and there was another property owner in the neighborhood who received a notification that essentially was neutral also.
Is there anyone here to speak against this? Anyone for? I guess- Okay. Sean?
So once again, if this was all 4 foot outside of that, it would be okay to be at this location. It's the 6 foot that's required to be back 15. So it's either a variance for going from 15 feet to 0 or from 4 to 6. Could be looked at either way, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then it's 6 foot all the way from the house out to this street fence, right?
Yes.
And then you talked about a patio that's on the east side of the house, correct?
Yes.
Other questions, comments?
Just one last one, Mr.
Go ahead, Sean.
On the north side of the house where they're dropping this down to 3 foot, does that fall within any site distance issues on the street concern?
I don't believe because it dropped down to that 3 foot, I don't believe that was in the 30-foot triangle in that corner.
So as far as the street intersection, we're not concerned with this?
Correct.
Okay.
Trevor?
Is that shed in that triangle, or is that triangle like right next to the shed? I
It
can't
looks
tell
like
from
the
this.
shed is just barely in that triangle. And this is an aerial photo, so, I mean, it's close, but it's not 100% accurate.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to accept or deny the request?
One last question, Mr. Chairman, maybe
Yep.
more.
Okay, go ahead.
As part of this request, there's 3 items on the agenda. Are we just taking the 15-foot setback? Are we dealing with the site triangle? Are we going to deal with all 3? And the shed, I think, is on there as well, right?
Correct.
So
The
if we
shed-
make this motion, are we dealing with the site triangle just all the fence issues, or are we just taking number one?
Well, I think we want to take them separately, do we not, Christine? So we just take number one first, Sean.
Okay, I'd make the motion to approve the 6-foot.
Motion by Sean to approve.
I would second that.
Second by Pat. Further discussion? If not, Sean?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. A variance request to increase the height of the fence, number 2, excuse me. Height of the fence in the site triangle of the required 32 inch to 48 inch on the southeast portion of the property located at the same. Open for discussion. And I think we've talked a little bit about that.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Are they still requesting to the 48 inches, or are they requesting to the 5 feet now? Because it sounded like you,
I think,
But
Well, on the plan that Western Fence submitted here, they showed it at the 4-foot level. Currently, it is a 5-foot level. And I
that's
guess
what-
if you guys say that we should stay with the 4-foot level, I guess that's what we'll do. But it, once again, it lowers the security issue and the privacy issue of lowering it from 5 feet to 4 feet, which it currently is 5 feet. So it was put in there, I think, because the city had asked that that's what it would be, so.
for the triangle.
Well, the request is for the 48, which would be the height in a street side yard. So I would say you should stay, I guess if the board wants to make a recommendation, either way, I believe that'd be the course. I mean, the request is to go to the 4 feet, not 5 or 6.
Sean? Thinking.
well, I mean, they're here saying 5, but this says 4. Did the 4-foot request come in with the fence company then, or is that what you guys just agreed to when you submitted this, was the 4
It's what the
foot?
fence company drew up, but it was because the city had asked us, and that's what they thought they had to bring it down to, was the 4 feet, so. We did not want to go to 4 feet, but we were told that's what it was.
Did you talk to the fence company about, did somebody talk and suggest 4 foot, even though it's 32, do you know, or?
I did not talk to the fence company.
His assistant talked to the fence company, the head of their fence company. I can't remember the gentleman's name now, but he was in contact with the city, yes.
Well, and I could believe that that's the general rule was the 4 foot is in the street side yard, which is the 15 foot. So I could see where that comes as part of city code, but now we're saying that it's less than that. right?
And generally, staff, we state what the code is. We work hand in hand with the fence company, so they have a good grasp of what our ordinance is.
Right.
So whether or not they talk to staff or not, I don't have any recollection of that.
Comments, questions? If not, what is your thoughts on the height and the triangle, side triangle?
You said you heard from somebody regarding this, but it wasn't a negative comment? Was that happen to be from the neighbor to the south by any chance?
I would have to repeat what the applicant said here. Exactly what they said is what the person to the south said they haven't had any issues backing out.
Mrs. Schaaf said they've lived there 4 years. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. She said, we've backed out winter, summer. There's no issues. Never has been.
And whether, just to remind this board, whether it's this owner or the next owner might have teenage kids, we have our ordinance for that vision triangle for a reason. If we want to change that, then we should bring that up to the planning and zoning and increase that or apply it differently per the code. I mean, I do appreciate the comments from neighbors when they get these letters. It gives us a good of what the area is right now, but the areas do change. People come and people go. The ordinance is what's on the books right now.
Other thoughts? Decision?
I guess I'm a little more leaning towards the 48 than the 5 foot, just with that what was on the sheet. So that's what I was looking at when I drove by the property and considering it versus the 5 foot, the 4 foot at that spot.
You would,
I'm leaning more towards a 4 footer than a 5 footer there. But
okay. Other thoughts? Are you ready for the motion?
Well,
John?
I just got one question, I guess, is if we were to approve the 4 foot because that's the request, do we improve the situation that we're trying to improve over a 5? I mean, what if it needs to be 32, for example, and we allow 48, then could we just as well give them what they're asking for at 5? I mean, do we make the situation worse by giving them what they're asking for at that point or not?
yeah, and I'm not sure,
In circumstances like this, other properties in town, what the fence companies are doing, they're actually creating the fence line with the triangle. I know it's harder for landscaping, but that is what's being done. They have a choice to comply with the code, or they can ask this board for a variance. Just to let you know, to keep that height, they come in outside of that triangle.
to keep it at 5 or 6.
At the higher height.
If they did that, I would assume they'd keep it at the 6 foot then.
I would be fine with the 6 if it was more towards the triangle, but I don't know if they want that corner out of their thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear his last comment.
No, I didn't, I had a little trouble too. In fact, I'm having an awful time with the mask hearing anybody, so, except Sean. But,
Here, I can. If, Leonard stated that the fence companies have been actually moving the fence so it's right on the site triangle, so you don't have to worry about the height of it. So that's not in your request, but I don't know if that was something that you would be more lean towards if you moved it to the site triangle. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I think we have that in there, but you're telling us we would move the fence in from where it's at? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if on this where the site triangle is, it's towards like the corner of your shed.
Yeah.
Mr. Schwintz had stated that some of the fence companies have just cut this fence off right here, and then you can go to 6 feet there. So you lose a couple feet of your yard, it'd just be rock on the outside of your fence, like the rest of it.
Well, as long as it doesn't interfere with what you're going to have to look at on the third motion here is moving the shed.
Yeah, no, I know that's another thing to consider, but I was,
Yes, I would go for that idea. That would be no problem. In fact,
It
it
might
would
be
make
worth looking at, because then you could keep it 6 foot all the way
Then you
around
get
and you
your
wouldn't
6
have
feet.
to,
And you don't have to worry about the,
It actually looked better.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a problem, but I just, just a minute. Like I said, I don't want to incur any more costs than I'm already looking at right here by moving a shed, plus all the landscaping in that yard. I mean, those trees are 20-foot trees in there, and we start moving a shed around in there. And I did have the one-call people come over and stake out the yard. And if I had to move that shed over to the other side of the yard, it wouldn't work because there's too many utility lines and gas lines over there. I've had that staked out to look at that issue. But I would definitely I wouldn't have a problem with what Trevor said here as far as, cutting the angle down, and then it would be perfect. And if it's just a couple feet, I believe the shed could stay there, but I don't know. I guess nobody asked us about that, and I haven't looked at it, so.
I guess I would be more inclined for that, and if I don't know if we can get the full site triangle where the shed is located or not. I mean, ideally, the shed would be off the site triangle, but if it's like a 1 foot on, I guess I'm not opposed to, but I don't know how you restate that it's, if they move it back to the corner of the shed or something like that, is that a motion or a thing that you could even state?
I think you can, to answer the question. I don't know if how that's going to impact, the applicant's ability to actually meet those requirements, if they haven't actually looked into that, I guess. But certainly you could, make that adjustment based on the request if you chose to do so.
And maybe you need to address number 3 prior to number 2 here.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're kind of going backwards here, aren't we? Okay, well, can we just bring number 3 in with number 2?
Considering, I think that you can't make the decision on number 2 without considering number
Number
3.
three.
So I don't think there's an issue with that. So if you want to discuss number 3 and decide what would be appropriate there, then obviously that will affect your decision with regard to number 2.
With number 2. Okay, well, let's jump to number 3. And that's a variance request to allow a shed in the street side yard setback where a 15-foot setback is required.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I guess I'm leaning more towards allowing number 3 for, I don't know if, I mean, the site triangle is hard to locate with the shed, but from the drawings we provided, it looks like maybe a foot of it would be in the site triangle, and I think at that point, that's definitely a hardship for moving the shed for 1 foot.
Right,
Okay. In my feeling.
understood. Other comments? Sean?
This is the only drawing I've seen on the shed other than it on here, unless I missed it somewhere. But do we have dimensions of how far the shed's off of the fence by any chance?
I didn't measure them. It's 2 or 3 feet away from each side of the fence, I would assume.
Do you know how far it's into the,
I would concur based on measuring from our program. I believe that would be accurate. Based on those measurements, based on our code, the front of the shed or the west side, I believe that the west side would be at that 15 or 16 feet. They'd almost have to flip the shed, move the shed, the length of it in order to comply with code.
Other comments? Thoughts?
do you know how far the fence is off of the sidewalk? I'm just trying to calculate based on dimension,
Measured-
what
It's
that,
approximately 80 inches from,
80?
yeah,
Okay.
from the inside edge of the sidewalk to the fence is 80 inches.
Is that property line?
Look at that again.
To be honest, I have no idea.
Just so the board knows, prior to any fence permit issued, the company has to locate the property pin. So based on whatever motions that you make,
Okay.
please include that with
That's where it has to go.
with your motion.
Okay. Other comments? Ready for a decision? Okay. Trevor?
So we can, just one question, we can make a combined motion for
Yeah.
3 and 2, or do we do 3 separate?
Should we go to it, both of them at the same time? If we,
Given that these two are intertwined, I think they become conditional. So for this one, I think it does make practical sense to
To do 'em
combine
both?
the two together.
Okay.
If that's the intent to combine the two.
okay, let's combine that 2 and 3 as stated. Go ahead, Trevor.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to allow the shed to remain located where it is located, and to approve a 6-foot fence located as close to the shed as we can put it, to allow the site triangle to be as big as possible or close to what's supposed to be there. Does that make sense, or do I need to state that differently?
That might be a little vague. I guess we should establish property lines, and then we could work with the applicant if this board is moving to that direction. Not sure. We really have to establish the property pins first as far as distances go.
Okay.
But if you wanted to state that the southwest, the fence shall meet with the, which would be the north east, or actually the
Southeast.
southeast corner of the shed, and create that vision triangle, if that would be more descriptive.
Is that descriptive enough?
Can I ask a
If it's
question?
descriptive enough for Leonard, then it's descriptive enough for me. So,
If you make that your
So
point,
to locate the property pin there and to make the fence as close to the shed as possible to establish the site triangle?
yeah.
Are you saying then if the current fence is not on the property line, that the whole fence would have to be moved? Is that what you're saying? I mean, I don't understand where you're coming at.
No.
No.
What he's saying is to, once you locate this, you'd create this line.
Okay,
But-
okay,
But if the shed is within the site distance triangle, trying to bring this up as close to the shed as we can without moving the shed. If that
okay,
makes sense.
okay.
Also, we have to establish that the fence is not in the right of way. I don't believe it is based on this line. The fence does have to be on private property.
Yeah, so with the locating the property pins, that the fence has to be out of the right of way. Do we have to is the shed out of the right of way? Should be, right?
The shed is out of the right
Okay, so we don't have to put
of way by
that
at
in
least
there.
4 feet.
So we don't have to
Okay.
put anything with the shed out of the right of way, okay.
Okay, let's review that motion.
So,
what you have.
Okay.
I think so.
You're
Well,
up,
that's-
me.
I believe-
Whatever she said. Okay,
I think
Yes.
so.
Yes, it covers it.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Sean. Any further discussion for 2 and 3? Hearing none. Trevor,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
I think I'll vote aye. Okay, very good. Anything else, Craig? Pat?
No, so do we have the fence contact, the fence company contact the city, or how do we go about establishing all this?
Yep.
In order to get a fence permit, whether you do it or the fence company, it's your choice.
It's gonna go through.
Okay, okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank you
for
for your
coming.
time.
Okay, number 4, a variance request to exceed the maximum square footage of an accessory building by 1,200 square feet at a property located at 3257, 110 S Avenue Southwest. Who's here? Take the podium, give us your name and all the reasons.
My name is Craig Buckman. I own the property there at 3257 110S. I recently put up a building in my backyard that exceeds that amount. And I got a mess on my hands because of it, and I didn't think it was going to cause the problem that it has. So I'm here for a variance on that 1,200 square foot to go to 2,400 square feet.
Okay,
I believe you guys have pictures of it, how it's set back. It's kind of tucked in there. I leveled off a back hill that was kind of useless in my backyard to put the building on. I stuck it in quite a ways from any property line and utilities. I talked to my neighbors. It's like, as long as most of my neighbors sign this.
you have quite a list.
Yes. Made a walk around the community one day. From what I was kind of reading, I'm not too sure on how this is all going to go, but the note 7 on the zoning district regulations, if I was kind of reading this right, it says we're allowed 3 buildings in our backyard. Each building can be 1,200 square feet. So we don't cover more than 30% of our yard as our maximum allowable, since we live on an acre lot. I don't know if I'm reading that right, but from what I'm understanding here, all allowable accessory buildings to a residence shall be limited to a maximum of 1,200 square feet. So we're allowed 3 buildings. So that would give me 3,600 square feet of detached building. I'm asking to combine 2 of them so I can keep the building I have.
Leonard, do you want to clarify that?
The maximum square footage of all accessory structures is 1,200 square feet for up to an acre.
Yep, up to an acre.
But it says we're allowed 3 of them.
The maximum accessory structure, detached structure, is a max of 3 on any lot, whether you have 3 sheds, and the total cannot exceed 1,200 square
I was going to
feet.
say, it's still 1,200, right?
It's still 1,200.
Not to be mean, that I'm trying to understand this here, but it says we're allowed to cover 30% of our lot. So that means we're not even close to 30% of the lot at or a combined total of 1,200 square feet, even with a 3,000 square foot living space. That's why I was figuring because it says allowed barns, stable storage buildings, and detached personal storage space. It doesn't say a total, it says for maximum, and we're allowed 3. That's where I'm kind of misunderstanding this. I mean, well, how can we cover 30% of our lot if we can only have 1 building, or a combined total of 1,200 square feet?
Well, I think the
all
codes-
buildings on the lot. We establish, per our zoning districts, whether your lot's 7,000 square feet or an acre, it's up to an acre. That percentage applies to 5,000 square foot lot, 7,000, or an acre. The percentages are on the chart.
Yeah, but I mean, the chart gives you, reading this, I mean, we're allowed 30% of the lot coverage of an acre.
And
I understand that if we lived in town,
we've had conversations with Mr. Buckman establishing, and that's why we're here today. So, but I want to back up this whole process. This came to me to come to this board. Prior to this building or this structure was put up without a building permit, and today it does not have a building permit.
that's a mistake I made in the head of the man.
And the building continued to go on even knowing that. So I definitely want to make that, bring that out to the board right now. So if you have any questions for me, I can certainly try to answer them.
Sean, you,
Well, just so, it's the tent structure that we're talking about, right?
Correct, correct. And to date, I have not received any information that prior to our request to show that the building meets the 2018 IRC, which, and as far as the engineered foundation detail, we have not received anything for that either.
I'm sorry about that. I thought I sent you that. I mistakenly didn't. I do have wind loads and that right here. They didn't give me they didn't give me a wind load. They gave me a snow load capacity of the building, because the way they originally sell this building is it comes out with 2-foot stakes. You put 2 of them in for every rib. So it'd be 4 on every rib that goes up.
Well, even if we approve this, though, we're not jumping into building permit requirements, and you would still deal with that aspect, right? I mean, so even if we approve the, because we're just talking about the 2,400 where 1,200
yeah,
is
we're just
out,
talking right now about the
At this
about
point.
the overage on square footage.
Well, what we have here is the city of Dickinson does not issue the permits in the ETZ. This property is in the ETZ. So I believe it comes together as far as if you allow the square footage when the building itself doesn't meet our code, it's kind of, you're approving something that shouldn't even be there. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, so number 5 is building materials, and if it doesn't meet the requirement of your building code,
The materials would be for our city of Dickinson municipal code, using similar materials as the primary structure. That's not building code. The building code is the structural itself, whether it meets our design criteria for Dickinson code. Again, we have the cart ahead of the horse here as far as the permit should have been applied for. The information that we requested should be somewhere. It should have been brought to the county, and there should be a permit pending, the way I see it. If that's,
Did you communicate with the county to know that there's not a permit, or how do you know, or what stopped the county from issuing a permit? Do we have to give a certification to them or
the
something?
county went through the process. As my understanding, the county, when this building was being put up, issued a stop work order. The stop work order was ignored.
I know that wasn't
And then the building still went up.
Sorry, I didn't
That's
mean to
based
interrupt.
on what the county has, this is over a year old. So it was brought to our attention, and then there was recommendation that it come in front of this board. If it comes through the city, I would look to take the building down prior to this board, but this was the process that the county wanted to go through.
So is the county is just waiting on us? They're not doing anything to get the permit requirements, or?
The county, I believe, is idle right now, waiting on what's this board's decision.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Leonard. But the stop work permit order that I have, that was days after I finished the building.
Okay.
I wasn't working on it after that. We haven't touched it since then, so I haven't been able to do anything of the stuff that I wanted to do, other than we stored a few things for building materials and a couple other things inside the building right now.
Mr. Swint, just procedurally, you had indicated that the county is the entity that issues the building permits in the ETZ.
Correct.
So hypothetically, what should have happened is the applicant would have went to the county to obtain the permit. And so the county, having that not been done for whatever reason, the county is asking the city to essentially approve of the structure as is and approve of the structure based on the variances and the fact that it's outside of compliance of the city code. So is the county wanting the city to give approval on that, and then the applicant would go back to the county and then request a permit? I want to make sure I'm understanding that.
I believe, there's no one here from the county, so I believe that, based on what the applicant says here, I have a different understanding of when that stop work order was given. At that time, a permit should have been applied for with the county. And I'm not
I
sure
didn't
if
know
you
none of
actually
that.
got denied a permit, or,
I haven't heard nothing. I mean, I sent in I don't have the letter from you guys. I sent in, I'm not sure where, I believe it was with the city, and then now you're up here in the county, so I'm a little confused.
so did you apply for a permit?
I applied for a temporary permit, and then it was supposed to go to you guys, and I was supposed to hear back from what I understood on what the next step was, and then I didn't hear nothing back up until this year. I got a letter from you guys, and then we ended up filling it out, and we talked back and forth a couple times. I know you guys been busy, so I mean,
I'm not sure what a temporary permit is. Is this a temporary building, or is it a permanent building?
I bought the structure as a temporary building. I had land lined up to buy this summer. It didn't go through because of COVID. Everything got jumped around. This building was supposed to move with me when I moved to the new property out in the country. It was just a temporary spot to use till I can sell this property, and then the building was going with me. And price was right on the building, and that's why I got it. And like I said, I mean, everything, I was planning on taking it with me at the end of this. And now I'm unsure when I'll be able to move. We're still remodeling the house, so that's what we're keeping. Like I said, we got cupboards, thousands of dollars with cupboards in the building. And now I finally got some work, so I've been busy running around like my chicken with his head cut off. And so now being unsure on when I'll be able to sell my house until I find property out in the country that fits my needs, what I want to go through in life. I'm asking to keep it. It will not transfer to the next owner of the place. I mean, if I can get a temporary permit that states that, that's all fine and dandy. I mean, I have a mess on my hands. I should have did a little more research from what I understood, but I figured since it was a portable building, so two people could take it down, put it up. I didn't think I was needing this, and that's where, like I said, it was my fault. I've got a headache on my hands, and that's why I'm here talking to you guys about getting to keep it there, at least until I sell my property, or if we got to make this, I guess, more permanent. Yes, we got to go there, but that's kind of where I'm setting in this situation. I can't afford much. I mean, everything's changed in my life. But that's my story, and that's nothing that you guys need to hear about.
Attorney Winkle, would it be fair to say that if the request is to exceed the accessory structure, to use that number not particular to this actual structure?
I'm not sure I'm following.
Well,
Mr. Schmidt.
the problem is the structure's there.
Correct.
He was coming in without anything there, and he's actually building a structure that meets the code. This would be pretty straightforward. If we look at it that way, as far as an accessory structure, and say it's approved, he would have to go to the county to prove that this structure meets the 2018 IRC. If not, whether this board can or the county would ask that that structure be removed.
Well, it does present a complex question because the structure is existing.
Correct.
I guess from my perspective, that probably should be the first and foremost question. Does the structure remain? Will you allow it? And if you do allow it, then you're going to have to determine and find essentially that it is going to be outside of that square footage requirement. It's a little unusual, it's a little complicated because now we're not only dealing with the city jurisdiction, we're dealing with the county with that ETZ. So I can understand the confusion slightly, but the fact is, the permit wasn't obtained, and that's part of the issue and the order of things. I guess, Mr. Buckman, it's a little hard, I guess, from my perspective, when you say you're not sure if you want it permanent or you want it temporary.
To me, it makes a heck of a lot more value to the place. I understand where you guys are coming from, saying materials and stuff ain't right for city ordinance and that kind of thing. I mean, like I said, I had all intent of when I purchased land to take it with me. I'm here doing all this extra now that we got to do. If I got to finish talking to the engineer and getting the rest of that, I mean, to go through with it, I don't know. I mean, it's, like I said, it's a little bit of a mess that I got my hands into here. Seeing that the neighbors, up the street, there's 240 by 60 structures and then 130 by 50 on the other side. I mean, that's why I didn't think the square footage was going to be a problem. And then after reading this, talking to you guys a few times, I was like, reading this right, I'm like, we're allowed three 1,200 square foot things. I'm like, I guess it wasn't clicking. I mean, if all in all, if I I don't know, I'm just kind of.
Is the structure
a little overwhelmed right
readily movable? I mean, is it, if that were something that would be required, I mean, is it
I've got it
movable?
mounted down to ties cemented in the ground.
Okay.
It's lag bolted with 1/2-inch lag bolts by 5 inches long into these ties. That's what holds the hoops in place. Yes, it is movable if we have to. I mean, I had 3 people helping me that day. We threw it up after we had all the ties in place and everything like that. So, I mean, it is movable. That is not a problem with that. That's kind of where I figured I didn't need the permit because it was a movable building. But the square footage is what got the best of me in this movable building kind of situation, I believe.
Mr. Schwintz, if the board made the decision to allow the structure outside of the square footage requirement, if they chose to do that, would you envision then the applicant needing to go back to the county to request that permit and go through the county's process?
Yes, I would concur with that.
Now, I understand that you're trying to sell this property and you're going to take this building with you?
That was my intent.
Is that what your intentions are?
Yes, I had actually a quarter of land that I worked out a deal with the gentleman to buy out north of town, and then COVID hit, and I ended up using my deposit. I started trucking for myself last year, and it was going great. I had $250,000 worth of projects lined up this spring. COVID hit. I ended up burning through all my savings that I had for a down payment on this property, so the deal fell through. So, I mean, but yes, I was planning on selling this property in the end so I could take the money and put it towards the new property. And the building would allow me a place to My thought, it was allow me a place to store stuff while I'm working on the property I was buying.
Other thoughts?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Trevor?
so I guess I have a question of, so if we approve the, I guess I'm a little concerned, or question on the timeline of this. So if we would approve the variance, they have to go back to the county to get a permit. Does the building stay through all this? Like, since it's already there, I don't really,
Like I said, the building's been up, I believe, by at least a year,
Over a year and a half.
over a year. If you're moving to approve this and to approve that the materials, also that, then it doesn't make sense to take the building down. If the applicant is unable to supply the county with the needed documentation to meet the code, it would have to come down, I guess. I'm not the county, but with the city, it would be coming down. I'd move that it actually be down.
so, and if we deny it, then it has to come down?
Correct. That would still be the county's job to make sure, I believe, it comes down.
Mr. Schwint, question for you. What would you envision if the structure would remain, if this board said, we understand it's up, should have process not followed nonetheless, if it goes to the county, and this might put you in a little bit of a situation if you don't know, what do you envision the county needing as part of that permit process? Obviously, typically you approve the permit before the structure goes up, but specifically the county's going to say, I've got the permit, I see that the city has issued the variance, the city has allowed the variance for the size, but not only the facade of the structure. Is the county's position then simply a rubber stamp to retroactively approve what should have been approved initially?
Yes.
Is there any way to, I don't really want to set a precedent for allowing people to build something and then apply for permits, but I'm not sure I have enough information on the materials or anything of this to say that, like, especially on variance on point number 5, but also I don't want to deny it, have him tear down the structure, then he would go apply for the permit and he would get it, and is there a way to force the permit application, go through the process to what the city would be like, to table it or give like a short time frame of it?
A time frame you're talking
Yeah.
about, Trevor?
Because I mean, this is already from 2019, some of this stuff, so.
I guess the board could put the variances approved based and set a time to go through that process for the applicant to provide the information that's needed for that permit.
Is
Or-
that, is the information that's needed for the facade, the other technical things that you need, I think you mentioned footings or something of that nature,
Structural.
is that something that the city needs to approve as part of the process, or is that something the county needs to approve as part of that building permit?
It would be the county. If this permit is in the city, we'd make sure that we had that information prior to approving the permit. And the county has adopted the state code, so I would believe that they would have that same process and the same requirements.
So if this would have worked initially, all in all, correct, that the county would have been the first entity involved with the application of that building permit?
Except for the variance, they would have came to the city. It's in the ETZ. Applicant comes to the city. The county sends them to us for a compliance letter. So what their intent is allowed per city code. That was the first step that should have happened. A letter comes from the city to the county, and then the permit process starts at the county level if it's in the ETZ.
So I'm getting this right. the size of the building's got to be approved by you guys. Since I'm over that 1,200 square foot,
Actually, the use itself, of any permit that's in the ETZ, whether it's a new home, garage, that would come for review from the city. It goes to the county permits it.
okay. What do you mean by ETZ? I'm sorry.
The extra zone for the city, we go out 2 miles.
Okay. That's,
Our zoning jurisdiction.
okay. Just making sure this is right. If I would have applied for the county, they would have had to come to you guys for the size of the building. And then once that was okay, they would have said yes or no to what I'm using for structure materials and
The use
mounting.
and the size of the building. The
Oh.
actual use, which would be a detached structure.
Okay.
And that's a determination that's made by,
Generally, it's the planning department.
But what was that, Lynn?
The planning department.
Okay.
And that's why Walter wrote this letter based on that, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, but did the county find this building that was unpermitted and come to the city and ask these?
I'm not sure
I might be
exactly
backing
how
up, but-
it came. I know we actually got a call that a building was being put up without a permit. And I think that was our initial, and then we sent it, the sequence there, that was the county's jurisdiction to see what they were doing, because they issued the permits, and that's where I believe the stop work order came in. And I believe a majority of that was verbal and I think a hand-delivered notice.
Yes, Bobby stopped and gave me the stop work permit, or stop work order, I should say, not permit, on the building. That, yeah. And I got to talk to her, and that's where we filed for the temporary use permit, and then didn't hear nothing back until you guys got me a year later. I got the letter. So,
to address Mr. Ernst's point, my understanding, I think you're hesitant to approve something with regard to the facade, the structure, without having more information. So I guess what I would suggest, if the others feel the same, that this would probably and practically be more appropriate to table the issue to allow the applicant to, one, bring forward that information and that material so that you can make an educated decision. But then also, two, I think it behooves you to go to the county and start that permit process.
okay.
I think it's going to be better if you come back here and have that process started and have that dialogue with the county, and then work with Mr. Schwint and the county to figure out exactly who needs to approve what, and get that dialogue going, and to bring that information back to these gentlemen so that they can fully evaluate your structure and then determine whether it should remain as it is currently built. That would be my recommendation.
Well, I think that's a good thought, because we have no idea about materials. We have,
Well, I mean, you see what it looks like.
yeah, I
but
can see what it looks
I
like.
think there's
Yeah,
a little bit
but-
more involved conversation there as far as, again, the structure, the materials, things of that nature. And the structure's up, so and it has been up. So now I think it's what do we do to remedy the fact that it was put up, and then also to try to determine some sort of compliance. But again, it is up, and I understand Mr. Schwint's position. We have processes that we have to follow, and this one wasn't followed.
Right.
So now let's try to figure out how we can work with both entities and the applicant to rectify the problem.
Appreciate that. On the building, it does have just kind of give you some, it's a steel construction. It's got a steel frame on it with, that's the hoops. They are rated for, because it comes over from China, so it's a 2 kp per square inch. And doing a little math, that gives me a 28 20.88 pound per square foot snow load. And that's tying, that's, you know, when they did this loading, they actually had to tie the weights on the building to keep them from falling off. The tarp is a 10-year UV protected tarp, so it's guaranteed for a minimum of 10 years. I understand they do have to be replaced like any of these structures. The city's had one for years covering the sand and salt pit, and that stood up well. I mean, the wind load, they couldn't, from what I was talking to an engineer a little bit, they couldn't guarantee me a wind load because, like I said, it does come with stakes to hold it in the ground, and every ground type is different. I was talking to an engineer here in town. We just couldn't quite get everything that I was hoping to have together for this at this point in time. He's got to still come out and look at it, make sure my anchor points, the half-inch leg bolts into the ties and all that, it's before he'd sign off on it. I haven't been home, and he's been busy with other objects too, so just to kind of give you a hint, idea of what it is.
Excuse me, just so you know, our snow load here is 30, not 28.
30?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if that changes with the way it's mounted or not. So, I mean,
And-
that's with it sitting on a cement surface, is what they were testing it on.
And Mr. Buckman, just so that we're clear, and I want to make my comments clear, the board has not made a decision
Yes,
whether
I
this
did.
is going to remain or whether this is going to need to be taken down. So I think now it's back on you to get all of that information so that these gentlemen can make a decision. And I think I understand Mr. Schwint's position on this. And
Oh, I
the
totally agree. I mean-
process wasn't followed, and I think I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's suggesting this thing potentially come down.
Yes. Like I said,
so-
it was my mistake. I figured it was, since it was a portable building, I didn't need the permits and stuff like that. That was my fault. I'm here today, you know, asking for a variance on the size. Now that I understand it, then we can go from there to the structure materials and go for the permanent, get the permanent stuff going from what I'm catching.
And just to help understand whether a structure is temporary or permanent, they still need to meet the same codes.
That's what I'm discovering. Sitting here in two of your guys' meetings now, I'm like, it's come along.
Mr. Schwint, as far as timeline, he would go back to the county, start that process. Whenever he would be able to get the city that material, we would just schedule the next meeting for this board whenever you get it, the information, or?
I guess I would like it, I believe we have time prior to our next meeting. Like I said, this has gone over a year already. I would like it to get that information established and into us prior to us. Still, we still have time.
Is that,
Like, prior
Is that
to next
possible
month.
to-
I believe we have time. So it's on you. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had some time here. So to get it ironed out, you may have a week
Yeah.
or two to get this into us.
I'm sorry, I've been working up in Watford for the last 2 weeks here. And I've been home.
is that going to give everyone time for the next meeting?
Because it's 3 weeks,
It's 15 days prior to the meeting is that we need the information back in.
Okay.
15 days. What day would that be?
That would be November, that'd be November 9th,
okay.
Monday, November 9th.
Is the meeting?
Is that right?
That's a bit short.
That's the.
Do you guys have a December meeting at all?
Pardon?
Do you guys have a December meeting at all that we could?
What?
Because
Yeah, we could have a meeting in December.
that's what I'm just saying. Because I just got on a job, and that's why.
December 14th? Is that all
Have
right
stuff
with that?
15 days before that, so November.
Do we need a motion on this?
You would need a motion to table
The
the
table
application.
until the December meeting?
Correct. And then, of course, obviously with the understanding, you've got some work to do between now and then and visiting with Mr. Schwint to get that information in.
Will do.
Anyone here to add anything? Okay. Yes,
Come on.
come on up. Just a thought. Go ahead, give us your name and,
My name is Dale Potteroff. I'm the next door neighbor to Mr. Buckman. And when he started doing this, I informed him that he needed a permit, and I told him specifically that my building is 30 by 40, it's 1,200 square feet. I would have built a bigger one if I could have, but they said that's all I could build. So I did not, this building that he put up, totally against it because I couldn't. I don't know why anybody else can.
okay.
And I am right next door to him, not halfway down the block. I am exactly right next door. to
Okay,
this.
Dale, appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion then to table?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we table item number 4 and item number 5 till we are presented with the proper information that is required for us to make a determination going forward.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trevor. Okay. Get my papers out here.
Can we have some discussion, Mr. Chairman?
I don't think there is any discussion with a table motion, is there?
Correct. I think it's just for discussion.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, go ahead, Sean.
I just wondered if we wanted to set the date,
Oh,
so there's a timeline
I
on
think,
it.
I
I mean,
think
it's fine to table,
we're gonna
but
put December meeting.
Yeah,
Right?
December
Ta-
15th.
Table
That's
till
what-
December.
I just think we should set that
Okay.
date so there's a
Yeah, I thought
timeline where it
that's-
comes
I
back
thought-
one way or another
I
instead
thought that
of
was
it.
gonna be in our motion, was it? We
Okay, I was
discussed
just
that.
making
the
sure.
12th.
Just making sure.
Okay. That would be in the motion.
Okay, I will resend that information, and again, we will, item number 4 and item number 5, we will wait for the information that is being put together for us and determined on the December 14th meeting of 2020.
And it was second by Trevor.
Second, yep.
Okay. Pat,
Aye.
Trevor,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Okay, get your work done.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Greatly appreciate everything and the knowledge that you guys gave me today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Mr.
Motion
Chairman.
by Trevor, second by Pat. We are adjourned.